share my screen, and you should be able to see it now. Can you see it?
Yes, doctor, we can see it.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So it's a great honor to be on this, to be in this part of the session that is organized by Ram Manohar and chaired by Bhushan Patwalan and Kishore Patwalan. Actually, you three are really, I believe, for particularly the globe. And you're also a source of inspiration for me. So thank you very much for having me in this session. And also thank you to all the co-speakers of this session. So let me talk a little bit about German contributions to clinical Ayurveda research and give you a brief update on what's happening in Germany right now. So greetings from Berlin. I have no conflicts of interest. So why should we do Ayurveda research in Germany on a wider frame in the European Union? Because in Germany, and particularly in Germany, utilization of traditional and complementary medicine is very high, and it's highest within Europe, at least in the European Union. So you can assume that about 65% of Germans have used in their lifetime or are using these treatment means. And there is, based on this, also a thriving community for traditional Indian healing systems, such as Ayurveda, yoga, mind-body medicine, and following that, also a large number of practitioners working in this field. Plus, Germany has a very long tradition of scientific engagement with India across academic disciplines. And just to focus on this, there's also current dynamic developments regarding Ayurveda, the founding of Ayurveda associations, and also within healthcare policy. And let's not forget that Germany is the EU's most populous country, so it also has an influence on decision-making within the EU. So the long-term goal, or my long-term goal, would be the evidence-based integration of Ayurvedic therapies into reimbursable healthcare based on clinical trials performed at least also within Germany or the European Union. So just to show you this heart with the two flags, symbolizing that there is a long academic tradition between India and Germany. And this is the screenshot of the recently founded Ayurveda Umbrella Association Germany. So you might want to log into this website. It's www.aravet.de, and it also has an English appearance. So this is a very recent and very powerful development within Germany for future Ayurveda developments in my country. So a few axiomatic things from my side, from which I believe that they are very important in this frame. Traditional medical systems, like Ayurveda, must also evolve scientifically to meet the challenges of an ever-changing global society and planetary circumstances. Or to phrase it differently, we cannot stand still, and we cannot say, we are several thousand years old, and based on this, there's no need to change. There is always a need to adapt and change based on the changes happening on a global scale and elsewhere. And in medicine, scientific evidence is the key gatekeeper for the public perception and the recognition of Ayurveda, particularly outside of South Asia. Maybe not as much in South Asia, where it's already established as a broad system of medicine. Also there, I believe, but in particular outside of South Asia, like in Europe or North America. And outside India, I'm absolutely convinced it requires a large degree of flexibility to local health systems, to health policy and academic structures to achieve our goals and to successfully implement our strategic goals related to Ayurveda or to yoga or to other Indian knowledge systems that we want to see in the medical arena. So let's get a little more concrete. What are the German contributions to clinical Ayurveda research over the last years? A lot of you might be aware of our Ayurveda and osteoarthritis project that was generously funded by the Department of AYUSH and CCRIS. And so far, 4 publications have come out of it. The most important one, no doubt, is the main results paper that was published in Osteoarthritis and Cartilage in 2018. It was just recently awarded with a prize, the Holzschuh Prize for Complementary Medicine for Excellence in Research. And that was a trial, I cannot go into details, but an effectiveness confirmatory RCT, where we showed that a multimodality Ayurveda therapy, so a traditional Ayurveda therapy, is effective, or more effective, you must actually say, in the treatment of knee osteoarthritis than conventional conservative guideline therapy in a head-to-head comparison. Another paper that came out of this was the results paper from the nested diagnostic study, which was also awarded in 2019 by the European Congress for Integrative Medicine consortium. And the results are to some degree ambivalent. It's very interesting to dive into this data, because it shows that there is a high inter-rater variability when you do such diagnostic studies, or at least in this study, we observed a high inter-rater variability. And the sensitivity of diagnostic procedures and specificity of findings are quite dependent on the individual diagnostic experts. So that's something to look at also for future trials. And I very much encourage people to also do research on Ayurvedic diagnostics. Another publication that we have come up with was this smaller exploratory trial on Ayurveda in mothers with burnout syndrome, where we counseled mothers with burnout with Ayurvedic nutritional and lifestyle counseling. And obviously a rather smaller number of participants, but nevertheless interesting key messages, positive effects in both arms without significant group differences when compared to conventional nutritional and lifestyle counseling. But in particular, and of particular interest from my perspective, the results from the qualitative analysis from the interviews regarding difference in therapeutic communication and interaction between Ayurveda physicians and patients favoring Ayurveda. Longer ago, this paper on additive Ayurvedic treatment in patients with fibromyalgia syndrome compared to conventional standard care in an inpatient setting. I don't want to go into detail, pretty similar results actually from the baseline message. But what I actually want to say based on these two publications, that I feel it's really the need of the time to also consider Ayurveda research on long COVID, because this goes along with many things that are, from my perspective, well treatable, or at least should be supported or can be supported well with Ayurvedic means, e.g. from the whole discipline of Rasayana, etc. And I think it's really the call of the day, once this acute phase of the pandemic is over, to do research on clinical research on long COVID and its effects and the chronic symptoms that patients are suffering from, because I do believe that Ayurveda is potentially very effective in this area. So this was also a publication that we institutional-wise participated. I think this is a very nice commentary that Uni Krishnan and his colleagues came up with in JACM, and it's very worthwhile reading it. We also published another paper recently, end of last year, about a broader frame, complementary and integrative medicine in the COVID-19 pandemic, a qualitative review of the literature and narrative review, where we also included traditional medicine and explicitly also Ayurveda. So this is at least on the national level, quite prestigious author group, and invite you to take a look at that. Let's look at some of the collaborations we're having the biggest one beyond any doubt, the one with the JS Ayurveda Mahavidyalaya and the PD Patel Ayurveda Hospital in Narenda, Gujarat, under Professor S.N. Gupta and also Professor Kalapi and Professor Manish Patel. Just to name a couple of these papers, one of them published in 2015, this paper on a complex multi-herbal regimen based on Ayurvedic medicine for hepatic cirrhosis management, complicated by ascites. This was obviously non-randomized and uncontrolled single group, but nevertheless very interesting. And such studies can be the basis for rationale and hypothesis building for subsequent randomized control trials, etc. So the main message of this publication, after 6 weeks of treatment and a follow-up period of 18 weeks, the outcome showed statistically significant and clinically relevant improvements with all the limitations of an uncontrolled trial, but nevertheless important to also perform these sort of investigations, studies, if you get the chance to do so. This was very recently published in 2020 with the same or a very similar working group, Deceleration of Disease Progress through Ayurvedic Treatment in CRF stages 4 to 5, quasi-experimental clinical pilot study, also with quite inspiring results. And these are the kind of results where I think they're very helpful to build up strategies, how to design subsequent interventional trials and confirmatory trials. This one is a couple of years back. We wrote this together, Ram Manohar and myself, Ayurveda's contributions to vegetarian nutrition and medicine. And I just want to mention this because, you know, now everybody's talking about the pandemic, but once it's over, we're going straight back to the climate crisis. And we all know that nutrition is a very important factor. And even the WHO and all the international organizations here, the Eat Lancet Commission, they're talking about we need to change our nutrition in the direction of a more plant-based, sustainable diet. And here the motherland of vegetarian nutrition, which is obviously India, can really contribute largely, and particularly based on the paramount existing knowledge that comes from Ayurveda. So here, our most recent publication, which is currently under review, we expect a publication anytime soon within the next weeks. It's still under review here in Frontiers of Gastroenterology. This is a randomized controlled trial comparing Ayurvedic and conventional nutritional therapy in patients with irritable bowel syndrome. And here you can see with the surface plot and also with this more conventional graph that we see significant in-group effects in both groups. In this exploratory design, the results are no longer between group significant if you compare them between group, but that actually is not the interesting message. The interesting message is that the Ayurvedic nutritional counseling is obviously at least equivalent, at least under the limitations of an exploratory study design to conventional counseling, including the FODMAP diet. And that's a hardball game. There's hardly anything we can offer patients with irritable bowel syndrome. And now maybe we can in the form of Ayurvedic nutritional counseling. So I think that we also need to put a spotlight on Ayurvedic nutritional counseling. And I particularly think this for Europe and North America, because it's much easier to perform such trials because they do not belong to pharmacological research law, for example, like in Germany. So it's much easier to perform such trials and much easier in many respects than classical pharmacological research. So where are the Ayurveda research hotspots in Germany? It's obviously here Berlin, with Charité and the Emmanuel Hospital, but also the University Essen, Duisburg, and the hospital in Essen, also the University in Bochum, in collaboration with the hospital in Hattingen, the European Academy in Bierstein, not to forget, and more recently also the University of Heidelberg. So here are a number of studies from other centers, for example, here from the working group centering around Shyal Kumar in Essen. Here, publication on the effectiveness of Ayurvedic massage in patients with chronic low back pain and RCT. Here, publication about the efficacy and safety of Ayurvedic herbs and diarrhea. Also a crossover RCT. And here, a review on the significance of Ayurvedic medicinal plants, also by this working group. A very inspiring publication for me is this very recent publication that came out of the working group of Tobias Hegelmeier and Horst Pschuntek from the University of Bochum. And this is it's very interesting. It's a masterpiece. There's also some ambivalence, I have to say, about it, but I think it's a masterpiece because they managed to publish it in Cells, which is a quite high-ranking international journal, without mentioning the word Ayurveda once. But there is no doubt that this is an Ayurveda study. They're actually making use of Ayurvedic nutritional aspects and basti, so medicated enemas. And everybody knows it's about Ayurveda, but probably the reviewers do not know. And it's a very subversive strategy to write such a paper, and Professor Valdis already mentioned it earlier, to write a paper using the biomedicine terminology, but the Ayurveda content, and getting it published, high ranked. And I think this is also an interesting publication strategy. I don't know whether it's mine, but I certainly do think that this is interesting. And the field of neurology is also a very promising field of Ayurveda research, I think. Then here from the University of Heidelberg, another interesting publication that just came out summer last year about, it's not a clinical, it's a lab trial, but it's about piperine, so piperine, piperlongumine, and its effects on the immune system. And what we know from Ayurveda for quite a long time, we also now know now from a German lab that exerts effects on the immune system. And it's probably not a landmark new knowledge, but it's certainly a very inspiring piece of research for the German Ayurveda community that can be a cornerstone for subsequent research activity at the University of Heidelberg and elsewhere in Europe. So my key messages, and I'm almost finished then: clinical Ayurveda research projects should integrate the holistic treatment approaches of Ayurveda medicine into its research designs, particularly making use of whole medical systems research, mixed methods research, triangulation, etc. This is my personal belief. We need to analyze Ayurveda as it is, as a multimodality traditional system of medicine. And from an EBM perspective, more level 1 evidence is required, e.g. from confirmatory RCTs, systematic reviews, and meta-analysis, in order to establish Ayurveda in reimbursable healthcare systems outside of South Asia, for example, in Germany. And let's not forget that good research on Ayurveda costs money, and only a very small part of medical research funds in Western countries, such as in my country, is available for Ayurveda currently, and this needs to be changed and or at least compensated by philanthropy if no public funds exist. Promising developments. Here, this bilateral call from the Department of Biotechnology in India in collaboration with the German Research Ministry, this joint call on phytotherapy that is long over, but as from what I've heard, there have been quite a few contributions, but no decision yet on what is going to be funded. But that's one big step ahead between our two countries in this area. What is my vision for 2030? So where do I want to see us in Germany with regards to Ayurveda in 10 years. I hope that there's going to be chairs for Ayurveda at top medical faculties in Germany, for example, at our university, Charité Medical University Berlin. I do hope that Ayurveda is going to be classified and regulated by German authorities, medical chambers, etc. That there is going to be government-approved Ayurveda job titles and qualifications, such as it is already in the beginning, at least in Switzerland. I hope that medical Ayurveda services are to some extent going to be covered by health insurance companies, and that safety and availability issues of Ayurveda products and botanicals are guaranteed, and that the public funding opportunities for Ayurveda research are going to meet much better than they are right now. So obviously that's hard, but to take it with John F. Kennedy, we choose to go to the moon in this decade and to do the other things, not because they're easy, but because they're hard. And winding it up with Charaka here, Kritsno, Hiloko, Buddhimatam, Acharya. It's one of my favorite verses from Charaka Samhita: for the wise, the whole world is a teacher. So thank you very much, and namaste from Berlin to all over the place. Thank you.